participants and listeners from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and MC for Gold Learning. And I'm here today with Dr. Kathleen Hawes, and we're going to talk about her upcoming presentation for the Gold Lactation Online Conference 2019. Welcome, Kathleen.
Hi, Kristen. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's so wonderful to have you here, and I'm very excited about the topic you will be presenting on. We're going to chat about that, of course, in just a little bit. But before we dive into the topic, let us know, where in the world are you?
So I'm here at the Brown Center for Children, which is part of Women and Infants Hospital and Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, in the United States. And so Rhode Island is the smallest state of the United States, and we're located south of Boston, Massachusetts. Most people are somewhat familiar with Boston, and we're north of New York City. So we're right on the coast and of the Atlantic Ocean, and spring is just starting to spring into place at this point.
Wonderful. So some trees in bloom. Do you have all these beautiful trees up there? I'm down here in South Florida, so I don't have the exact same vegetation that you have, but I'm imagining it must be quite beautiful.
We have buds, and some of the bulbs are starting to come up, so a bit more to go.
Nice. Wonderful. Okay, so now that we know where you're located, we can picture you there just a little bit. Let us know a little bit about your professional background as well.
So I'm what we sometimes call a late bloomer. I didn't go to nursing school until after I had my 3 children, and I thought I was going to be a nurse midwife, and that did not quite work out. I ended up working in intensive care for a while, and then I worked in hospice, and I loved hospice nursing very much. And I found that a lot of my nursing was really more psychosocial and emotional care I was providing patients, and so I decided to get my master's in psychiatric mental health nursing at that time. And during my master's program, I had some research classes and was working with some wonderful nurse researchers at Women and Infants Hospital, and decided to stay and apply for my PhD. And I've been here ever since at Women and Infants doing research, but also teaching at the University of Rhode Island, and I'm also faculty here at the Brown Med School. So that's where I am now. So my clinical practice at this point is outpatient treatment for primarily women, but families who most of the time have had some exposure in the neonatal intensive care unit, either with having a preterm baby or a baby who is seriously ill. And I also see families right in the NICU and provide therapeutic services to them right there.
How wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. You have a wonderful background there, from hospice nursing over to now seeing families, being involved in research, teaching. What a wonderful background. So well-rounded. That must be really, really interesting, the work you're doing there.
It's never boring, I can tell you that.
Absolutely. And now your presentation will be about epigenetics. And let me ask you this. There's a lot of buzz around epigenetics. We hear a lot. It's kind of the new, for a few years now, maybe, you will know this much better than I. And I remember a few years back, there was a article in The Guardian, I think it was like 2015 or 16, and it said something like that: beware the pseudogenies, the pseudogene genies. After nano and quantum, epigenetics, an important branch of biology, is the latest scientific buzzword to be hijacked by quackery. Okay, so we know epigenetics is real, we know it's a science, obviously. And have you encountered that, have you seen any barriers that, in your research, there were people saying like, oh, this is quackery because, XYZ. What is your experience with that?
Well, I think I've been very fortunate because our director here, Dr. Barry Lester, who actually is the author of the major article I'm referring to here, has been very involved almost from the the dawn of epigenetics, along with Dr. Carmen Marcet, who's the microbiologist. And so they have been extremely rigorous in their approach to the science. So I have read some of those pseudo epi
Hmm.
voodoo words from other writers, but I think over the last few years we've been able to accumulate some pretty good evidence that it actually is a thing, and a good thing at
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
To know that we're not, our DNA is not set in stone. While our DNA code is, there are different things that can happen in the environment to turn things on and turn things off, and things that we can do that will make our lives be, healthier because of that.
Wonderful. That sounds absolutely amazing. And now let's talk about your presentation. I'm really excited about this topic. Your presentation title is Epigenetic Impact of Breastfeeding on Infant Stress Regulation. Tell us a little bit about this.
So this is something that, again, our director, Dr. Barry Lester, we've been very interested in the work of George Meany regarding um, the what happened, like this notion of how mothers who are very high nurturing, and these were rat studies, and their the effects of this, nurturing their babies really, really well, and feeding high archback nursing of these baby mice, rats. I mean, they had different characteristics. They were less anxious. They, seemed to be much less stressed than the baby rats of mothers who were not so good at providing nurturing care to their babies. But we didn't know what the mechanism was behind that. There were a lot of different ideas and hypotheses about that. And so with epigenetics, we can see that by the care the mother provides these baby rats, the infant rats can have less stress and anxiety, and that it can be carried through generationally. And so we took that model, and now because we can do epigenetics with human beings, we can see that there actually is this effect on gene expression in mothers, in the babies of mothers who provide high quality care. And it's not just the great news is that it's not just mother care, it's anyone who's caring for the baby, and if they're providing good skin to skin and good interaction, that can have a profound impact on the baby's gene expression and their ability to manage stress.
That's absolutely fascinating. And you mentioned something, it is intergenerational?
Yes, what's so interesting is that, we haven't seen this in humans yet. It's too early to tell, but in animal studies, we can see that these effects carry on through generations, and you can actually switch the pups. So the the rat mother, two rat mothers can have a set of litter, and that you can switch the litters, and so you give a low nurturing rat mother some babe, they're different babies, and vice versa. And then those babies, it's the care they get, it's not the genes they were born with. And then they can carry that on the female baby rats, so when they become mothers, they can carry that on to their pups. It's pretty
Absolutely.
incredible.
Pretty incredible. And yeah, I mean, thinking about that, that being aware of that, the how much good we could do when we know about this.
Hmm.
Teaching about this, working with our clients about this. But then on the other hand, I'm also thinking, oh my goodness, what does that mean for families who grow up in situations like war zones or refugees, or that where families are torn apart by either nature or war and violence. That can also have the opposite effect, right?
Right. I mean, we've heard about adverse childhood experiences and how that can have an impact on us as adults. I think the good news about epigenetics, though, is that nothing is set in stone, and that there's always the potential and possibility that with um, healthy relationships, we can kind of repair some of the damage that may have been done, environmentally through different kinds of trauma. So I think that's one way to kind of look at that.
I absolutely like how you put that. Nothing is set in stone. There's potential and possibility. Love
Mm,
that.
hmm hmm
So before I let you go here, what are you hoping the delegates or the listeners will be able to take away from this presentation?
Well, in the infant mental health world, one thing we are always considering about is, the baby is at the center of everything, and it's all about that baby. That baby needs healthy, good, warm relationships and the power of that relationship. So, the primary power, of course, is that, breastfeeding mother. We know how powerful that is. However, we can also start looking at the evidence and seeing that babies don't necessarily care who is loving them. They just want to be
Mhm.
loved and cared for. And I think that
Right.
is probably the takeaway message is that everyone in the family, even though a baby's being breastfed, that doesn't mean they can't be a part of being the nurturers with that baby and building that healthy early relationship. And
Beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kathleen Hawes, for spending time with me here and talking about your background, is spring in your area, and also, of course, your presentation here with us at Gold.
Well, thank you. It's absolutely been a pleasure, and I'm so looking forward to the conference.
Thank you, and we are looking forward to your presentation too. And now to our listeners, epigenetic impact of breastfeeding on infant stress regulation is part of the Gold Lactation Online Conference of 2019. To find out more about this presentation when it's been held in your time zone, it's going to be held live on April 8th. Go to goldlearning.com and there you will find information about this presentation and the other presentations in the conference as well. Thank you everyone for listening here today. Bye bye.